Hi guys, it's Kelly Lativola here, and I am back with another video for Neat and Tangled. Today we're going to be using the Polygon stencil and then two stamp sets and their dies from our newest release. This is Hello Spring and the Little Monster stamp set. When I originally went in with this, I'm working on Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock. I wanted to give myself like a little bit of a border on the left and bottom. And so I went in with my T-square ruler, and I'm using that grid mat to help kind of line it up for me, and just doing some pencil lines. Originally, I did like a full ½ inch. It was way too much in hindsight. The border was way too big. I would have done just a quarter had I to do it all over again. It didn't even end up that we're keeping the border anyway, so don't get attached to it. So I have some Post-it note tape, and then it comes as 2-inch. I've cut it in half. And then I'm just putting that down. I folded it over. And then we're going to start talking about the background. I did, because I got full set syndrome, guys. I bought the next set. So now 3 sets of Distress Oxides. I have all of them. And I'm sure when the next ones happen, I'm going to buy those too, because I have no self-control. The Squeeze Lemonade was totally worth it, like in and of itself, honestly. But anyway, so I started with Wilted Violet and then went to Picked Raspberry to Carved Pumpkin and now the Squeeze Lemonade. Here's why it was worth it for me. Because typically when I want to use Squeeze Lemonade, I have to ink blend for like a million years to even get any sort of pigment down on my paper with the regular Distress ink. And because they blend so great and they have like the partially opaque properties of a pigment ink, it just went on totally awesome. But anywho, so the first time I'm going through and I'm doing this diagonal rainbow, I'm being very, 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 very light-handed because I want to put my stencil down and then I'm going to go back over them with a little bit of darker color, but I still didn't want it to be terribly dark. That was why I was being so light-handed to begin with. So going in with the Salty Ocean and then the Distress Oxides, it's so awesome because like the second time you go over it, those colors get so bright and bold because they do have the pigment ink in them. It's like so much less work. Not that I don't still love my Distress inks. I do for different things or for different looks. So the one thing that I do want to note is when I do my Distress inking, like here, this yellow into this orange, I went in and did the orange, but then I had to go back in with the yellow just to make sure that it was blended. I'm going to do the same thing here with the pink. I seem to find that when I do darker colors or a lighter color into a darker color, this type of blending does work the best for me. Going to finish off the whole thing with the Wilted Violet, which is where we started. And then for now, I'm going to leave my stencil in place. It's been a long time since on my personal channel, it's been a long time since I have done a background where I did any sort of water splatters or perfect pearl splatters. And so I really was kind of missing that. The one thing that I do want to tell you, and you're going to see me kind of eat my words here in a minute, is you're working with paper masks. And so you need to be careful how much water you're putting down because it is just paper and it will bleed through. And it will ruin any areas that you are trying to keep masked. Or I should say it has the propensity to ruin it. It's not a guarantee. So once I did the just the clean water spatters, which I love the way that it makes the little thing oxidize, I'm going to go back in with Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearls and do that again. Again, I'm trying to, do minimal moisture, so I'm blotting that up with a paper towel, and then I'm going to start removing everything. When I remove this stencil, never have I been so sorry that I did not do a full page background because I loved the way it came out. Here, you can see on the left-hand side that because I did the spatters, I had an area of the Picked Raspberry Carved Pumpkin that kind of bled out into my white areas. It's fine because I didn't really like that border anyway, so I'm just going to cut it off. It's fine. So I have a smaller panel, no big. At least I still have a background that I like. We're going to move on to the stamping. So I'm using my Mini Misty. I am stamping the little monster and the balloon. I'm actually going to stamp the balloon twice. Well, honestly, I end up stamping the monster twice too. It was just that kind of card. So I'm using Intense Black ink from Simon Says Stamp because I am going to be doing some Copic coloring. So this is where I'm at. I started coloring my little monster like green and purple. And then as I was coloring him, I did not really love the way that that was looking with the card background. So I decided to do him like grayish white. You also probably noticed there that I have a C1, a C3, and a W5. The reason that I have a C1, a C3, and a W5 is because I went out to lunch with a crafty girlfriend who I totally love and I never get to see very often. And I think it'd been like 6 months since we'd seen each other. But anyway, we have a brunch place that we go to. We bring our craft supplies, and typically I end up giving her like some sort of Copic marker lesson, because that's always what she has questions about. But it's cool. We chat about our lives and super fun. But we were coloring something. I can't remember what it was. Oh, a white shirt. And she didn't have a C5. And I was like, you need to get some of these darker colors. Well, I'm pretty sure accidentally she has walked off with my C5. So I have not replaced it yet. So while I was doing this, I was like, I need the darkness. I'm just going to use the W5 and it's fine. I mean, I don't prefer the warm grays, but is it like the worst thing that ever happened to this monster? Probably not. So for the shading, I am putting a little bit of shading on the left and the right hand side where his head is like tucked into his shoulder. There would be shadows. Underneath his arm, there would be shadows. Where his little belly hangs over his legs, definitely shadows. On the underneath of his arm that's stretched out, shadows. So I'm started with my lightest color, worked out to my darkest, and now I'm working back in toward my lightest. Speaking of monsters, this is a funny story. So as many of you know, I have multiple jobs. One of the jobs that I have, I work third shift, which means I go in at midnight and I work until 4 a.m. There used to be Dunkin' Donuts that would be open all night long, and those were the best Dunkin' Donuts ever. And then slowly but surely, they started closing up the Dunkin' Donuts, and now they all close at like 10. But my shift doesn't start until midnight. So if I want the coffee, I have to make it to the Dunkin' Donuts by 10 o'clock. So the other night, I had to work, just side note, I wanted to make him rainbow because I thought it would be adorable. So I am doing little stripes on his belly and on his horns. And then after I do the stripes, I'm going to do little spots kind of like on his forehead and on his back where the stamp has already drawn those. Anyway, so I'm sitting here and I'm crafting and I look up and it is, I live with a toddler. I'm sure you probably heard that. Now that I have explained to my toddler what it actually means to be quiet while mommy does a voiceover, back to the story. So anyway, I'm crafting. I'm into I think I was watercoloring. So I was like it was super intense. And I look up and it is 9:40. And I'm like, oh my, I got it. But the coffee, like I won't survive my shift. I have to go get the coffee. So most of you know, if you watch my videos, that I wear a robe all the time because my husband keeps it cold in here and I am a freeze baby. So I have my hair up in like a messy bun. And when I say messy, I mean like super messy because I slept on it. I have all these little baby hairs that are sticking out like wings off the side of my head. I have on last night's makeup, which includes just eyeliner on one eye. That's it. That's all I have. Just eyeliner on one eye. Then my hair on top of my head. I have a robe on. I'm in my pajamas, which includes sweatpants and slippers, PPS. And I go out into the family room and I tell my husband, I'm like, I have to go to Dunkin' Donuts. They're going to close and I'm not going to have any coffee whatsoever. And so I put my winter coat on over my robe. This is how classy I am, guys. This is really how I live my life. And so I put my winter coat on over my robe. I jump into the car. I go tooling down the street to get my cup of coffee. And after I get my cup of coffee on the way back, like I happen to catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror. And I realized that I totally I look like I'm coming off a bender or I'm a homeless person or something. I mean, it was so terrible. I actually sent a video to my girlfriends of what I looked like while I was just laughing hysterically at just what complete disregard I have for how people perceive me while I'm in the pursuit of coffee, which I did get my coffee and I made it through my shift and it was fine. Anyway, so in order to break up his little dots there, I just added some white gel pen, and then I like to outline all of my images, even when I'm going to die cut them, and so that's what I did here. I went ahead and did all of my die cutting, including the script and the shadow for the spring. And then in order to complete the sentiment, I thought it would be super cute. This particular set has the "You put a spring in my step," which is adorable, right? With the little spring. So I'm going to do some heat embossing just on some black cardstock. So I treated it with my powder tool, and then I stamped it down with Versamark ink. I put my powder on so I could see where it was at, and then I stamped the next one that I was going to need. You might notice that there's like a cut in between takes, and it's because my noggin gets in the way when I'm bending over to make sure that my sentiment is straight. The whole time I was doing that, I had my heat gun heating up, and so I'm just going to take the heat gun to it until it's all nice and smooth and melted. I trim those down into labels, and now we're going to start constructing the card. So I have some white fun foam that I'm going to use to pop up the background. You know, like sometimes just saying words. What I do for a living, I talk on a radio, and so do a bunch of other people that I work with. And you would be shocked how often we all just mispronounce things. I mean, and we do it for a living. It's not like I don't talk for a living. I do. And actually, I have to be articulate while I do it. Anyway. So I put that down with the white fun foam, and now I'm going to add the spring onto its shadow, which I just did in black and white because I love black and white with rainbows. That makes me happy. I think that they're super pretty, and especially since this one is maybe a little bit more pastel-like. I don't know. It's just super cute. I did manage to save the little dot on the eye this time around, and so I'm going to put that down. And then it did take me quite some time to kind of figure out the layout that I wanted for my card, since I had such a large sentiment. So once I finally figured it out, played around with it enough, what I decided to do was I trimmed down those little label pieces even smaller. I'm going to glue the spring down completely flat just with Tabomana multi-glue, and then I'm going to pop up the two labels kind of around that. So the in my step I put kind of in the center, and then I'm going to add the "you put kind of in the top left hand side so that there's I guess a nice flow to it. The blank area in the bottom is where I'm going to put my little monster. I'm also going to pop him up, my little rainbow monster. He's so cute. I'm going to pop him up with some sketch foam tape as well. And then I'm also going to pop up the balloons. For the yellow one, I'm kind of going to tuck it behind his head because I didn't want it competing. Like, I didn't want it in front of his face. He's the focal point. The balloon is the accessory. So I'm going to put just a little drop of Tabomana multi-glue on his hand to hold that balloon string. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the blue one so that those little strings are right over his hands, but nothing's covering up the sentiment. Then again, I'm going to have to tack down that little balloon string. The last thing that I'm going to do is add some shimmer to the balloons and then to his rainbow areas. So his little horns and his little belly. And then that is the whole card. So I think it came out super cute. I think it could be, you know, birthday or just encouragement or, you know, just a happy, fun little card to get in the mail. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.